Okay, this is your walkthrough for the Half-Life Worksheet 1. This is going to be numbers 1 through 4. Here we go. Let's start with number 1. Number 1 states the half-life of cobalt-60 is 5.26 years. That's often shown like this. That would be the abbreviation for half-life. 5.26 abbreviate years. And it wants to know how many half-lives pass in 10.5 years. So the important thing when you're looking at time passing or I'm just going to say time passed, is first it's always 0, right? Because you always start at 0. So after 5.26 years pass, that would be 1 half-life. And then if another 5.26 years pass, that puts you at 10.52 as far as time passed. And that is another half-life. And if you look, then that is what they're asking you about. So how many half-lives pass to get to 10.52 years? It would be 2. Every half-life takes 5.26. So your answer is simply 2, and it'll be helpful if you circle your answer. In fact, we should probably write it as 2 half-lives. So we've labeled our number. Okay. Next up, 2. So number 2 states that you have 12.5% of a radioactive sample left. So that's all that's left. It's 12.5% of the original amount of the sample. They want to know how many half-lives passed. So we must have started with 100%. So we start with 100%, and then it's a half-life. So 100% we get cut to 50. And if another half-life occurred, we would cut 50% in half, so it will become 25% of the original amount. And if another half-life occurred, it would get cut in half to 12.5%, which is what the problem is asking about. So if you look here, we cut it in half once, we cut it in half twice, we cut it in half 3 times. 1, 2, 3 half-lives. So your answer here on how many half-lives is 3 half-lives. Moving on to number 3. After 3 half-lives have occurred, so this time we've had 3 half-lives, so 1, 2, 3. 1 half-life, 2 half-lives, 3 half-lives. They want to know how much of a 400-gram sample of your radioactive uranium remains. So we started with 400 grams, and again, it's a half-life, so we simply cut this amount in half each time a half-life occurs. So it goes from 400 to 200 grams, and then from 200 to 100 grams, and then from 100 to 50 grams. So your first half-life cuts it in half, second half-life cuts it in half, third half-life cuts it in half. And so your answer there is your 50 grams. Okay. And then finally, number 4. After 4 half-lives, 10 grams of uranium remains. So how much did you start with? So again, your first half-life, second half-life, third half-life, fourth half-life would leave you with 10 grams left over. Well, since we're doing half-lives backwards, the opposite of cutting in half would be doubling. So we would be at 20 grams, we would be at 40 grams, we would be at 80 grams, and then we would be at 160 grams. So 160 grams is our original amount and our answer for this one. So if you look at this, right, 160 gets cut in half once, first half-life. 80 gets cut in half to 40, second half-life. 40 gets cut in half to 20, third half-life. 20 gets cut in half to 10, fourth half-life. right? We just move up in reverse to solve for that one. So hopefully that makes sense to you. If you have any questions on this, just make sure you ask in class while you're working on this. And that is it for this video.